Check it out, guys. This is the Viltrox 16mm f1.8 full frame lens, and it has a freaking LCD screen on it. Here. How useful that is, how cool that is, you're gonna find out in this video. But first, let's take a closer look what's inside of the box. This lens truly impresses me, from the build quality to the functions. I mean, let's just go through all of the things that this lens has, and let me tell you, hold on to your seat. First of all, there's a lot of buttons and switches, which is not super typical for Viltrox, but in this case, you know, I see this lens as a more premium, more pro lens. Let's just go from the top. The filter size of this lens is 77mm, even though the front element is not huge and it's not really big, and the closest focusing distance is actually really close, 0.27 meters or 0.9 feet, which in my opinion is pretty good. This is a 16mm lens, so it is a wide angle lens, and with the maximum aperture of f1.8, which is pretty crazy that they managed to get that in. On the lens itself, you have two barrels. One is for the focus. Is it smooth? I mean, it's like Viltrox smooth in my opinion. I'm gonna be testing the autofocus performance and the picture quality later in the video, so stay tuned. And then you also have the aperture ring, and it also has all these values. The really cool thing that I've never seen with any of the Viltrox lenses is this actually can be clickable or declickable. You have a little switch on the lens right here, and so I don't know if you can hear with the ocean in the background, but now it's with the clicks, and if I just turn it off, then it's all smooth. Of course, if I don't want to use the ring and I want to control the aperture on the camera, I just set this thing in auto mode, and there you go. Otherwise, don't get crazy, if it's somewhere in the middle, you have to control it on the lens and you can't control on the camera. Further on, we have two function buttons, not just one but two, so obviously you can program them the way you want it and, you know, use and control some of the settings on your camera. Of course, autofocus, manual focus switch, and the biggest surprise, the LCD screen, nice and beautiful. And yeah, and on the bottom, which I also have not seen anywhere on these lenses, they have a rubber gasket, and Viltrox actually claims to have this lens water, dust and waterproof. No, not the waterproof, but I need to take the manual. This is why you need manuals. This says everything here. Dust proof and moisture proof. So don't throw this in the ocean hoping it's gonna float and you're gonna use it. It's dust proof and moisture proof. So should give you some confidence. There should be some gaskets all over the place. Let's take a look at the picture and video quality. I'll throw it on Sony a7 IV, and then I'm gonna head back to the studio and finally find out what the hell that screen shows and where can we use this lens? Who's it really for?
Here you see on the screen a test of a bunch of different images where I went from f1.8 to all the way up to f22, and just to see first of all how nice the bokeh looks like in the background, and also to check out the sharpness. So I have this fake plant in the middle, and if I zoom in to 100%, you see that it's really sharp in the middle, and all those little leaves, plastic fake leaves, look pretty nice and sharp. And the same thing goes when I zoom in all the way to 200. They remain sharp even at f1.8. So honestly, that was a bit of a surprise that wide open this lens is so sharp. And in this test, I was trying to look at the vignetting. Here you can see I'm starting with f22 and going all the way to f1.8. And you can see that approximately at f2, the vignetting comes up really a lot, and at f1.8 it's even more, but something 2.2 and 2.5, it's not that noticeable. Please bear in mind that Viltrox sent me this lens it's a pre-production lens and I still don't have the lens correction filter, and I'm 100% sure that by the release date this is going to be fixed and there's not going to be any vignetting, because that's an easy fix. Another thing that really surprised me is that it is optically really good lens when it comes to chromatic aberration and all other things. So in this example, you can see that I'm zooming into 100%. There is this wire, cable, whatever. I was shooting at f9 at that time, and honestly, I don't see any weird artifacts, and the same goes with the trees and the tree leaves. As we know, the Viltrox lenses are usually not the best quality when it comes to chromatic aberration and all those things, but I think this lens is really great of how it handles. And I took a look at other pictures and other picture examples, zoomed in all the way to 200%, and honestly I cannot find any faults even with those small branches. It is remarkable. And also, if you just take a look at the really busy picture, I mean, everything is nice and sharp and clear, and there is great detail everywhere. I was also trying to check on the corners, and there was one image where the corner was sort of soft, but I think it might be also because I was focusing on God knows where at that time. I checked on other pictures, and you know, honestly, like take a look at here, there's some branches on the corner. Looks pretty decent. At f9, yes, you should expect a sharp image at f9. I didn't do this same test with f1.8. Unfortunately, didn't do too many night photography images, but I did few, and here you can see that the details also are pretty good. And as I mentioned previously, bokeh is just really beautiful. You can see in this test how the background blurs. And when it comes to video quality, again, I was really surprised with the sharpness. As you can see from this video, in the middle of the frame, the sharpness is really great, and even on the corner the sharpness is really nice. I enjoyed working with this lens. It's nice and wide. Amazing bokeh. Of course, if you want to achieve a lot more bokeh, you have to be really close to the object. And on top of that, I was trying to get these lens flares and ghosting, and to be honest, I think it handled really well. So if I'm really close to the light, and this is some LED light on the street, and I was turning and twisting the camera so you can catch those lens flares, and I did some. But if you see in this example where I've, you know, the lights are a little bit further, virtually no lens flares or ghosting. So I think this coating on the glass and how the lens is built, it is pretty amazing. Good job, Viltrox. All right, so I did also a couple of autofocus tests, trying to focus from close object to far object. I was in autofocus continuous mode, and you see it focused fast, and most importantly, the autofocus sound was non-existent, and that has been a problem with Viltrox lenses previously. The autofocus motors have been loud, but not in this case. I did the same test with the video, and I was just simply placing the object right in front of the lens. And as you can hear, there is a tiny sound of the autofocus, but that's nothing you would hear in a real life situation. And I think it handled really well. The eye autofocus works 100% perfectly. I was using it on Sony a7 IV, and I mean, even if I turn my head, I don't know if it's this camera or the lens, but it would just catch the eye perfectly. I also did some, you know, hiding away from the frame and coming back in, and I think it worked pretty well because first it catches the face and then it catches my eye. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. And so who's this lens for? Focal length is very wide. It's a wide angle lens, 16 millimeters. I did try to do some macro shots, but you can't really do that. I mean, you can, like in this example with the flower, you know, you see nice sharpness, but the little bug is quite far. I also tried to take some pictures of details like this leather stitching on this seat, and as you can see, you can do that, and especially if you have high megapixel camera, then you can definitely zoom in, but it's not for macro detail shots. I would say architecture and real estate, this is definitely a really good lens. This lens is for landscapes because, you know, simply you can take amazing photos and take all that landscape in, and probably people who would want to get this lens is for astrophotography, and probably because of due to the screen and the wide aperture. And let's talk about that screen in the next section. So first of all, the screen is highly visible even in the daytime. It fires up immediately. In the middle, it shows the current object distance, nice and big, and it can help you understand where you're focusing. It shows both, even if you're in autofocus or manual focus mode. On the bottom is the aperture bar, and on the top is object distance bar. And here's a really cool thing. If you're in autofocus mode, it will be shown here on the left, the little icon. However, if you switch to manual focus mode, you can program 2 points. Let's say point A, we're gonna set it to 0.3 meters. And to save that focal distance, I simply have to hold the FN button on the lens until it gets green and program. Then I switch to point B by just pressing that FN, and I set the other value to, let's say, 2 meters for the sake of this test. And save it again by holding the FN2 button. And now what it does is, if I want to, for example, focus track between the points, between those 2 points, point A and point B, I simply press the FN button and it automatically goes between these 2 points. This is applicable for photos. I'm not sure how useful that is, but for videos, I think this is really great because you can simply pull the focus back and forth between these 2 points. When it comes to the price and the value for your money, hands down, I think this is really good deal, because honestly there are not that many lenses to choose from. There's a lot of manual lenses, but if you talk about autofocus lenses, and especially about lenses that has wide aperture, I think Sony 14mm f1.8 G Master is the only one sort of fitting this bill. It's wider, it's G Master, so you got a lot more quality and, you know, a build quality and weatherproofing and all that, but it also costs 3 times more, $1,500 US. I know that Sigma just released the 17mm f4 for $600, but again, that's f4, so I'm not sure if astrophotographers would really want to go with f4. And then the Viltrox 16mm f1.8 is going to cost around $550, so honestly, a really good deal.
Alright guys, there's gonna be more videos about lenses, about cameras and all other stuff, so definitely make sure you check this channel back out and let me know what you think about this Viltrox 16mm f1.8. Are you getting one or not? And I'll see you in the next video very soon. Cheers guys, bye!